Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful, phenomenal, remarkable day, whether you are beginning it, you are in the middle of it, or you are beginning to wind down. My name is Lindsay Joseph, and I'm your host of the Go-Getter Showcase in Session, my weekly, semi-exclusive solo podcast where I discuss my ideas, rants, and musings regarding life, work, motherhood, and more. And what does semi-exclusive exactly mean? Semi-exclusive means that this podcast goes out every single Wednesday to my email subscribers in my newsletter. It's published to my website on Thursday, and then come Sunday, after 72 hours, it becomes locked content, indefinitely and exclusively for my membership community. So how is the best way for you to stay up to date with both previous and upcoming episodes? The best way is to join the membership community. You can find that at mygreaternow.com/membership. So, what I'm going to talk about today is something that is kind of a beef that I have with the self development, professional development, personal development space that I work in as a career, business, and leadership coach for women. And it is about success formulas. So, a lot of coaches, consultants, mentors, instructors, whatever may have you, that they happen to call themselves, because that is definitely a different subject for a different day. A lot of these people create, or they've been taught, or they somewhere along the line find these success formulas. And typically, what their success formulas entail is, if you do this and you follow these steps, you will get this outcome. And that is a beef of mine because oftentimes they're very confined to these steps in the success formulas. Like, if you do A, B, and C, your end result will be D, E, and F. It doesn't necessarily always have the wiggle room for, if you can't necessarily put A, B, and C into the formula. And so there should be multiple ways to skin a cat. I believe if you're calling yourself a success coach, you need to work with what it is that people already have, as opposed to constantly telling them that they have to require particular resources in order to be successful. And so that is the beef that I have with that. So the only success formula that anyone should be concerned with is a pretty simple concept. Inputs plus external variables equals outputs. So inputs being very straightforward, it's exactly what you put into the beginning of the funnel, whether it is your time, your effort, your money, different resources that can get you to where you need to go. Because the truth of the matter is, when you're planning to do anything, one of the biggest things that you should be considering is, what is it that you need upfront in order to get started. Everything that you do requires some upfront resources. And there should be different options, whether you have the income or the cash to put up front in order to obtain certain resources, or whether you have to kind of finagle and hodgepodge getting these different resources because cash may be a restraint. There may be times where it's like you have the time in order to get certain things done manually, which will result in a better outcome. There may be times where you have to automate some processes in order to get it just done quickly and without you being so in the middle, in the mix of things as well too. And so you really need to consider all of these different factors, whether it be time, money, energy, effort, software, equipment, knowledge. Some of us come with a certain knowledge of certain aspects. Some of us have to acquire that knowledge before we get started. So we really need to consider all of the inputs that are required into this funnel. Then you need to think about the external factors that are going to be affecting what it is that you're putting into the process. So the external factors are things that you may not have control over. They may be who else is in that space, who is competing, what is the supply and demand curve for what it is that you're developing or trying to sell, or whatever it may have you. What is the current pricing in the marketplace at that time? What are the barriers of entry? Was there something that was disruptive in the market, whether it be an event, like for instance 9/11 with the travel industry for some time, or security, or whatever it may have you. So there are different factors that can contribute to the success of how well your inputs really work. And so you need to, if you can, plan ahead for them, knowing that there are going to be certain ones that are going to definitely occur, because just because you do something doesn't mean that there are other things happening outside of you and you're acting as a single agency and whatever it is that you're doing. Like, you need to really consider some of the outside external factors that are going to impact what your inputs are. And then ultimately, you also need to consider what could possibly happen, or what could possibly go wrong, or what could possibly even go in your favor that can also affect your outcomes. And then also, is it going to have a positive or negative impact on what it is that you do? And so that's kind of like what I was talking about last week with the decision trees. So, really getting a clear understanding of all the other things that can affect what it is that you put into the process, and what kind of constraints those are going to create, and what kind of opportunities they're also going to create too. And that's probably the most important, although probably the most difficult part of this success formula. And then, of course, the end is the output. So, what happens when you combine these resources with these external factors that you plan for? Ultimately, your outcome is going to be the output. And so that was, a pretty relatively short explanation. It's something has been on my mind for quite some time, but I just don't believe that as a success coach, years there's only one way to success. I don't believe that if you're trying to achieve something in your business, whether it is opening multiple locations, there's only one way to do it. I don't believe that if you're starting an online academy, there's only one way to do it. I don't believe that if you're getting into public speaking, there's only one way to do it. I don't care if you're selling t-shirts, pins, backpacks, hair supplies, whatever the case may have you, any of those things, there's only one way to do it. And yet, a lot of the times, like I said, some of these people, they've done it one way, and so they'll instruct you their way without necessarily seeing the resources that you have up front. So I would never discredit what it is that you already have, or go broke trying to be able to afford, or obtain or get the resources that somebody's telling you need to. I would always do your own additional research first. Doing your own research allows you to see how there may be other ways that you can do it, especially with what it is that you already have. I'm a big believer in using what you already have, as opposed to just having to scrape things up in order to do things the way that somebody else wants you to do. I would also say that get various opinions of other people who have been successful prior to you doing what it is that you are setting out to accomplish. Getting different inputs would certainly be able to help you understand what it is that you need to definitely get that you don't have, and what it is that you can kind of work with that you already do have. I would lastly say that another important thing that you are definitely going to want to do is that if you are going to be working with a coach, you need to understand what coaching is, that it is a cognitively developmental process, that your coach is the expert in guiding you through a solution and working on a problem yourself, not necessarily somebody who's going to sit here and tell you exactly what to do step for step. That is a consultant, that is somebody who's going to help you develop a plan, but both should be very cognizant of what it is that you're bringing to the table from day one, and how they can help you expand on that and maximize the utility of the resources that you already have. That way you can minimize your costs in obtaining what it is that you need. And so that was a relatively and so comparative to some of my other podcasts, comparative to some of my other podcasts, this was definitely pretty short, but it's also something that I feel just needs to be said, quite frankly. If you want to listen to something that is longer, you can go to the existing podcast, which you can find again by joining mygreaternow.com/membership. But also sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot of time in order to explain a very very simple process that honestly my industry often does not explain or help people fully understand. And so make sure that you are definitely following those steps where you're doing your research, you're getting multiple opinions, and then you're also understanding what kind of help or interventions are available for you, and how they work, and how somebody should be working with you. So also, if you want to book a free consultation with me, you can go right to my site, mygreaternow.com, and you can go to either the top bar, which is going to ask you to book a consultation, Or if you go to any one of my services, you can find the free consultation on just about any page that I offer. And so that is a way for you to see if I would be a good coach for you. But regardless of what you do, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.